Throughout my own life and fitness journey, I have had the privilege of meeting incredible people who've shared valuable insights on mindset, health, fitness, and spiritual growth. The profound impact of this knowledge on my own life has inspired me to share it with all of you. I'm Erica Sweeney, host and founder of My Fit Tribe podcast. Join me as we explore inspiring conversations with experts, thought leaders, and everyday heroes who offer their stories and practical tips to help you on your own journey. From nutrition and fitness to mental well-being and personal or spiritual growth, our mission is to empower you to take charge of your health and live your best life. We are more than just a podcast, we are a community. Through coaching, a wealth of shared knowledge, and a strong support network, we are here to guide and encourage you every step of the way. Come be a part of our tribe. In this episode of the My Fit Tribe podcast, I'm sitting down with someone who's truly part of my tribe, my physical therapist, Erienne Lauersdorf from Peak Endurance Performance. We dive into injury prevention, recovery, tissue therapy, and how advocating for yourself can change everything. This is a powerful conversation you'll want to check out. Joining us today on the My Fit Tribe podcast is Dr. Erienne Lauersdorf, a doctor of physical therapy at Peak Endurance Performance in Madison. A former Division II volleyball player, she earned her doctorate from Concordia University and has worked in outpatient orthopedics as well as coaching and training in a CrossFit gym. Erienne specializes in helping motivated clients improve movement, prevent injuries, and achieve meaningful functional changes in their fitness and daily life. Hi, Erienne. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Erica.
So taking our listeners back of how I know Erienne, I injured myself in 2023, I think, and suffered a shoulder injury and was dealing with recovery. Unfortunately, ended up with frozen shoulder, torn labrum, and etc., and ended up having surgery. So she was my PT from time of injury through and after surgery.
Oh, yeah.
Poor girl.
One of my favorite clients.
Oh, so a big reason I wanted to have you on the show is because for me, getting that good physical therapy, again, before surgery and after was a game changer for me. My past experience with physical therapy was maybe not so great, where you provided a different level of care that provided the tissue work and the laughter and the environment, which made it more conducive to wanting to do the work and the healing process. So thank you, first of all, for all of your treatment.
Of course, my pleasure.
So let's talk a little bit before we get into PT and best practices about what your journey was, in addition to your athletic career, and what got you on this path.
Yeah, I figured you were going to ask this question, so I was thinking a little bit about it. And the more I thought about it is, if I reflect on myself as even so far back as a high schooler and being in college, I probably was not made to be a physical therapist. It's a very people-first job, and it's a very, I would say even an extroverted job, right? You connect with people, you're seeing people for the full 8 hours you're working. And it's a very up in the air kind of job. You have to think on the fly and you have to pivot a lot with people, basically. So when I was younger, I was very introverted. I would call myself an extroverted introvert, where I can connect with people pretty well, but would much rather hang out at home on my couch. So I guess my route to physical therapy was kind of a blah one, if I'm being honest. I just was athletic all my life. I had injuries all my life, so I knew kind of in general what physical therapy was. And I knew I wanted to go into the healthcare field somehow. So I ended up going the physical therapy route. My mom was a physical therapist. Hers was very different, though. She was a pediatric physical therapist, so I always made fun of her. She would go to work and her office had a ball pit and swings and slides for all of her pediatric clients. I'm like, okay, Mom, yeah, you go to work.
Play zone.
Yeah, right. So that's kind of the route I ended up going. And I'm very thankful I ended up there. It's been very challenging and it's kind of brought me out of my shell a lot. I feel like I've gotten way better at talking to people, connecting to people, tons of different kinds of people too. We were just talking about before we started how I kind of match people's energy, and PT has gotten me to do that. So even though I feel like maybe I wasn't if I would have taken an aptitude test in high school, like physical therapist would probably not have been top on that list. But I'm very thankful for the career I am in right now and where I ended up in the career.
I think it's funny that you say that about the extrovert introvert, because I feel the same way. And here I'm hosting a podcast and doing all these things. Like, it doesn't really
Let's
make
make
sense.
ourselves really uncomfortable.
Exactly. But you grow from that and you develop relationships with people that really change the trajectory of your life. Whereas you stay in that cocoon where you're comfortable, you have no growth, right?
It's crazy. I'm just thinking about my career as a physical therapist right now. Like, my first job out of PT school was in a big hospital system, outpatient orthopedic. I was a new grad, scared because I didn't know anything, right? Naturally so. And 3 years into that, I was so burnt out because I just felt like I was just like in this mill of like productivity and client after client after client. And I wasn't like getting anyone better. And then COVID happened and I got furloughed. And then that's when my career like really shifted. Because while I was unemployed, well, like everyone was unemployed because of COVID, my CrossFit gym that I was a member at, the owner was like, hey, like, do you want to be a general manager? We have a general manager opening. We need one. I think you'd be great. And I was like, well, if I can practice physical therapy out of it, like, I don't want to just like not do PT. I felt like I went to school forever. I want to use this. And so that's where my growth as a PT and like my passion now as a PT really took off, because it brought my fitness aspect. Like, I love CrossFit, I love working out, I love being strong. And then my PT aspect, I love helping people be able to do that and keep doing that. And then as a general manager, like, that job, I feel like really brought me out of my shell, because like week one, he had me cold calling people I've never known before. And I'm just like, this is the worst. But I got so good at like interacting with people. Like, as a manager of a gym of like 300 or 400 people, I knew everyone by name. I knew all about their families. Like, I got so good at like being out of my comfort zone. And so now, like, none of that stuff makes me uncomfortable, which is, I think, a huge part of why I'm effective as a PT.
Oh, you have to be able to ask the questions, and you're in kind of an intimate setting when you're doing physical therapy with people.
I don't even think almost as important. I think your ability as a PT to connect with someone and make them feel comfortable is more important than the skills you have as a PT. Like, if you can't connect with someone that first or second visit, that buy-in isn't going to be there, and it makes it a lot harder to do your job. And if people aren't going to buy in and want to be there and want to spend that hour with you, it's really hard to get people better, I think.
And there's so many different levels of PT where you have the clinicians, you have the different, locations or experience where you're dealing with maybe nursing homes and that type of care, or in the hospital, or you're dealing with the paperwork. Like, there's different levels or different job areas people can focus on with physical therapy. But you have now found yourself at peak performance, where you're dealing with, again, post-injury, high performers, and really merging that fitness with physical therapy.
Yes, I have been working at peak since, oh my goodness, January of 2023 is when I started. And it is like the best place. It's chef's kiss for like where I want to be, how I want to be practicing PT. And that peak is a rarity in the physical therapy realm. Like, very rarely as a clinician do you only see one client at a time and get to spend an hour with them. And then very rarely do you get to treat, like these very active individuals, like high-performing individuals. And most importantly, on my end, like highly motivated people. Like, they're there, they're investing their time, they're investing their money, because we are a out-of-network clinic, because they think that their well-being, their health is worth it. And so it's really fun because of all the buy-in. It's very collaborative, which I love. It's not just me telling you to do this. It's like understanding why you're doing it. Okay, I'm definitely doing that because I know this is going to make me better. And then it's cool to see, like, I think the youngest people I see are like high schoolers, and then the oldest people I see are 75-year-olds getting ready for like the Ironman. It's
Isn't
insane.
it crazy?
It's insane. It's so fun. And the variety of everyone in between that I get to see at Peak has been awesome. And I've learned so much.
You bring up a good point with the buy-in, though. Again, you're being a private provider where people have to spend that money and make that appointment versus just getting that referral from their doctor.
Yeah.
What a difference the mindset can make, whether you're all in or not.
100%. Yeah. Right. It's like, okay, we're out of network, so there's some skin in the game. You are paying a good amount of money for this service. So they already know, like, I'm going to do this. I'm all in. I want to get better, which is great. But a lot of it, too, is just like the type of person who walks through our doors. Like, they sought us out. Like, they didn't go to their primary care provider and get told to go to PT. They're like, I need to fix this shoulder. I'm going to search and look for the best, or ask my friends, like, where should I go? So they're already highly motivated to get in your door, which is the dream for a physical therapist.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have people that not just are dealing with injury recovery, but injury prevention.
Yeah, which is like also super cool working at Peak. We see a lot of overuse injuries. But then what we can do, because we are out of network and we're self-pay and all that, we can go above and beyond, like not just get you out of pain, which is what people's insurance will cover or partly cover or whatever. A lot of people stick around because of the strength program we do for them, or like, wow, my knee pain is gone. Now I'm running a minute per mile faster. Like, let's work on getting faster. Let's work on some performance things. I know it's ski season is coming up. My knees always bother me. Like, let's work on preventing that from happening. So a lot of our clients end up turning into, like, we call them like longevity clients, or like performance-based clients, where it almost turns into a little bit of a personal trainer type role, but just like knowing their history. So it's a little bit more in tune, I guess I'd say.
I'll just talk a little bit to our listeners about what my experience is versus what I expected. Having had PT prescribed by a doctor in the past, I would go in, get an evaluation, and I would get sent home with a little piece of paper which showed me my exercises. Now, as people who know me, I love to lift, I love to exercise, but doing those exercises is not my strength. It's just not. It's hard to do something that's mundane, and you don't always know if you're doing the right form, and if you're not doing it correctly, it's not going to do you necessarily any good. So I kind of expected to go in just to get those exercises. But you were able to evaluate and not only provide the exercises, go through them with me, exercises that weren't necessarily boring, traditional ones, but we also spent a little bit of time at the gym to talk about other ways to use the muscles to offset the imbalances. And we did a lot of tissue work, which is stuff that I don't know that all PTs that are referred to by GPs are able to use, or use as often, I should say.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of times, especially in network settings, like, I'm not trying to bash any in-network PTs. It's just the system isn't set up great for their success.
Exactly.
I get to spend an hour with you once a week or every other week. So 20 to 30 minutes of that can be me digging into your shoulder and like doing needling and cupping and all that kind of stuff to kind of prep the body, loosen some things up, gate some pain, get that out of there so that we can do a shoulder press or lift something a little bit heavier, right? So being in the setting we're in, we're just lucky that we have that opportunity. And with that, we're going to get better results as well, which is nice.
Yeah. So I want to touch a little bit on the tissue work, because again, for me, that was a game changer. And I have, gone to the gym with my cupping scars, looking like the purple polka dot hippo.
Love cupping.
I've had people come to me and ask, where do you get that done? Because they have wanted it done. And I think that's my favorite. I don't love dry needling, but she's very good at it. But let's talk a little bit about those different modalities, what your preference is, when you use each one, stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm big, honestly, if there are any like cupping reps out there, I feel like I should get a sponsorship deal, because you know what? Your elbow hurts, toss some cups at it. No, I'm kidding. But I use cupping a lot. I dry needle a lot. I do some deep tissue stuff, especially more so if people are needle adverse. And then I do a little bit of instrument-assisted soft tissue work, or like Graston is what people typically call it. I do that one probably the least. And I do them based on what's in front of me. So cupping, I use a lot if people are holding a lot of soft tissue tension, like their muscles are really tight, their back is in spasm, they're crazy strong like Erica, and like her lats and her bicep and her delts are like very developed and like are restricting range of motion, like that kind of stuff. I use cupping because it's the one modality where we can just get that distraction versus like a compressive mechanism. So I think I've explained it to you as well. It's almost like I'm using it for a 3-dimensional stretch. I'm pulling whatever tissue's underneath the cup out away from everything that's underneath it. So it's getting us that like 3D access to it. The other reason I really like it is that it's one of the things that after the cups come off, like people are like, that feels awesome. Like I instantly feel a little bit better. So that's when I would use cupping. Dry needling. I mean, who doesn't like to stick a needle in someone, right? So needling is different in that I use it for a little bit larger of a spectrum of issues. A lot of people think dry needling and they automatically think like trigger points, knots, like that kind of stuff. And that's the more obvious thing. A lot of times people are unaware that their muscles, when you get trigger points, like they can refer pain elsewhere in the body, just like a nerve or a disc or something like that can refer pain down your leg or down your arm. A lot of people come in and they're like, I have sciatica in my leg. Well, actually, that's like a glute trigger point. That's like referring pain down your leg. So those more tender spots, or especially if they're really inflamed, I'd so much rather stick one needle in it than use my elbow to dig in for it for 5 to 10 minutes, because overall it's going to be more tolerable. So that's definitely going at some trigger points and getting that actual knot in that muscle to kind of release is kind of what people think of most with dry needling. The other way we use dry needling is we use needles in the muscle, and then we hook up some stim to it that actually gets the needle to pulse and gets the muscle to pulse. And a lot of times I'll use that if people are having tendon issues, like a tendinitis, because it's a good way to stimulate the tendon without loading the muscle, which oftentimes is painful for the tendon. So we get all the benefits of exercise to a tendon without the pain stimulus of it. So it's a really good way to jumpstart some initial loading for a tendon. And then the other thing I use it for, this is a little bit less frequently, but people say a lot of like, man, I just like can't feel my glutes, or my glutes don't work, or I call them lazy glutes a lot. And that does happen. So a lot of times I will needle and stim a glute and get it to contract hundreds of times in 10 minutes, and then I'll strength test them again, and it's a much better contraction. People can feel that muscle activate just by kind of like reteaching it how to contract. So that's why I love dry needling, is there's so many different ways you can use it.
So I'm going to back you up a little bit to the first way you use it, where you're hitting that trigger point and doing that release.
Yeah.
So let's explain like what exactly that does. So you're putting a needle in a muscle, and it like what makes that trigger point release by putting that muscle in it? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there are. Let's get deep here. Okay. There are 2 types of knots or trigger points. There are active and latent trigger points. So an active trigger point is something like, I'll take upper trap, for instance, because like everyone has trigger points in their upper traps. If you touch it, or even without touching it, like you'll get pain referred. So a lot of times upper trap, it's like into the head, or like a headache, or like down into the shoulder a little bit. Those are active trigger points. When I stick a needle into that, it is actually like physically disrupting the fibers that are bound together. So naturally, A muscle fibers are long and skinny, and they slide and glide past each other. That's how you contract and relax your muscle. So this is basically a chunk of them that's like bound up and stuck, and they are not doing the sliding and gliding. So it's like a knot in a shoelace. You can tug at it, you can exercise it, but the knots are never going to come out. So sticking a needle directly into that bogged up area causes this physical chaos, basically. And with an active trigger point, you'll actually get that kind of spasm or that twitch response. Whereas in a latent trigger point, same idea. It's not as painful. It's tender to the touch, and you're like, yes, I have a knot there, but you're not getting that referred pain. And a lot of times those won't get a twitch response. So I have a lot of people coming in with expectations of, oh, if I don't get a twitch response, it's not doing anything, or it's not beneficial, and that's not necessarily true. So, but because it still does the exact same thing. When I put a needle into a latent trigger point, I'm going to break up some of those tissues.
And cupping is doing the same thing. Again, you're just pulling the tissue apart in order to help it to heal.
Yeah, and cupping is a lot of blood flow to the area. That's why those red marks, and people call them, right, like call them bruises. It's different, though, because bruise kind of insinuates that there was tissue damage. Cupping, there's no tissue damage. It's just a ton of blood flow. So, like, the marks don't hurt. They're just purple.
Very purple sometimes.
So cupping is more of like a stretch and a ton of blood flow to the area. So it is a pain gating mechanism as well. Yeah.
So what type of people, other than like tension, or what type of people would be using more the dry needling and the cupping versus, like, say, just the exercises for everybody?
If possible, honestly, like, I'm a both, like, and not or kind of situation. I think especially if someone is coming in with pain, like, there is something we can do to, like, taper that down a little bit in clinic. Whether it's needling, cupping, deep tissue, scraping, it doesn't necessarily matter. Like, but there is something we can do to make you feel better leaving. And that's the whole goal. It's like, yes, exercise is going to get you stronger. It's going to build your tissue capacity, and we need that as well. But if you're coming to me and I have an hour with you and you're in pain, like, let's get rid of some of the pain, right? So I think everyone can benefit from it. But even beyond that, like, how many times have you come to me where you're just like, you know what, I'm a little tight, lifted a lot, my shoulder's tightening up a little bit, I'm not necessarily in pain, but, like, I could use some cupping, I could use some body work. So I use body work a lot as, like, a performance enhancer too. Sounds like a drug, but
that kind of, I mean, it is, because from my experience, I mean, I'm one of those people who holds a lot of tension in my muscles, and I have a lot of pain in general in my muscles. So to be able to get that release, that deep tissue, I mean, I can't go to someone who's doing a massage who doesn't go hard enough, or very few. There's a couple people that know who are very hard.
Yes.
But it's, for me, that helps to just make me feel better overall, helps me breathe better. And the imbalances that might be causing that tension, it's easier to look at fixing them, I think, once you have kind of relaxed your muscles.
Yeah, 100%. And that's kind of like what I was talking about with the dry needling. If you have, again, I'll just say an upper trap that is just riddled with trigger points, like, you can stretch and stretch and stretch, and those aren't necessarily going to go away either. Or you can strengthen, but you're still going to have them, you know? That's why we tell people a lot, like, use a lacrosse ball, use a foam roller. These are ways that you can mitigate that on your own. But a lot of times, if you're to the point where your body's in pain, like, it's not because of that one lift you did or that one run that you did. It's the months and months before of buildup, basically, of dysfunction. So anything that we can do to make your tissues, your muscles, your tendons, whatever, more normalized, not free, lengthened, all of that kind of stuff, strong, like, the better you're going to feel. And that's where these modalities come into play.
So let's talk a little bit about assessment when someone comes in and they maybe have a knee issue or a hip issue. Like, how are you evaluating, and, what are you looking for, and then how do you approach it from there?
It depends. So a lot of it is their activity specific. So at peak, we're not seeing a ton of people. We do see some, but we're not seeing a ton of people who are like man, it hurts to get out of bed today, or like I can't get up off the couch. It's like I run 5 miles and then my ankle starts to hurt, or I can't bench past 80% of my max because my shoulder starts to hurt. So a lot of it is like, okay, you're a lifter. We're going to probably go down to the gym and look at mechanics or look at where your strength's at, or if I can see something wonky. If you're a runner, unless we're in a ton of pain, we're likely getting on the treadmill and assessing that way. So it kind of depends on what their activity is. So my assessment of a knee of a runner is much different than my assessment of a knee of a power lifter. And then the other thing is, like, how acute are they? Are they in pain while walking, or does it take them 5 miles into their run to feel pain? Because then it's probably, I'm not going to elicit much of anything in the treatment room. We're probably going to have to run for a while to like finally see what's going on. So acuity, sport specific, what they tell me in their subjective might clue me into some things. So I try not to waste time in an evaluation with checking boxes of this is a knee, so I got to do X, Y, Z before I like get into the meat and potatoes of it. Because talking to people, I'm like, well, I know that this isn't the reason you're having pain, so why look at that test? You know what I mean?
Right.
So it is very different person to person, which is why this is a plug to fill out your before evaluation paperwork. It's just helpful. But yeah, and then because I don't like to spend time on a ton of evaluation, like if I want to narrow down, are you severely in pain, moderate, or is it like a mild irritation? So I want to nail down the severity of it. And then I would like to nail down like the tissue that's causing it. So then I can jump right into treatment. So if I can get into treatment right away, I can get my hands on you even in a day one evaluation, which doesn't usually happen outside of like a private practice like this. And then I can get you some exercises for home, and I can test, do the treatment, and retest to make sure they're appropriate for you. And that's also important for client buy-in as well. Like if I can do some things in clinic that make you leave clinic day one feeling better, well, that's a ton of buy-in as well. It's a confidence booster for them. It's a confidence booster for me. Like, okay, I know I can get you better. And that just builds really good rapport from day one as well. So to answer your original question, initial assessment depends on the person, depends on their subjective, depends on their sport. And then a little bit of assessment just to like confirm or rule out what I'm thinking based on that. And then hands-on treatment, exercises, and then test and retest.
Yeah, and that's what I loved about going to Peak because, again, going with my original shoulder injury, I'm not sure of what needs to be done, and just being optimistic walking out of that appointment, knowing that you were doing the tissue work and I had exercises that, again, were doable. It wasn't just handing me a worksheet, which is, again, what had happened to me in the past. Again, not slamming any PTs that are in the clinics, but again, it's a time thing, it's a procedure thing, and there was a lot of questions asked with a little bit done. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%. It's like, and again, in network, they're taking insurance. Insurance needs to see checklist A through Z
right.
to be able to say, okay, we'll reimburse you. So a lot of it is just like having to cover your butt, which is annoying, honestly. Like
but that's the medical system
It's
now.
the medical system.
Mm-hmm.
It's setting up really good PTs to be not very good, you know, like not getting the results that they should be or could be getting. And then clients leaving frustrated. And then, unfortunately, the word is spread that like PT doesn't work.
Right.
You know, the amount of clients I come into my clinic who's like, I've been to 3 PTs, like this, nothing's ever helped. And then like second session, we're getting really good progress.
Right.
So it's an unfortunate situation.
Well, again, it's important to let people know if they're going through either injury recovery or they're high performers or very active and want to make sure that they can keep moving, that there are options other than what they may be accustomed to. And you don't need a referral to do this. Again, there's the cost associated with, but the time to be able to get in is way different than having to go to a doctor and get a referral. And then you have 6 weeks covered, which you may or may not know what to cover or what issues, you know?
Right. 100%. Yeah. I think right now at Peak, like our wait time to get in for an eval is like same week, if not the next week, whereas a lot of times in networks are like 6 weeks out. And that's how we get a lot of clients who come in and was like, well, I have an in-network scheduled for 6 weeks out, but I wanted to get going, so I just want to do a couple visits here. And then by the time couple visits come, like they're feeling much better and they're like, I'm just going to stick it out here.
Right.
And they're blown away with the results. And it's not just because we're like, man, we're amazing at peak endurance. We're good at what we do, but we're also equipped with the time and the tools to be able to do it.
Right. Since I had surgery for a frozen shoulder, I just want to touch base a little bit on frozen shoulder because we had to work through that post-surgery manipulation, and that was no fun. But I'm hearing more and more of people, especially women, middle-aged women in menopause age, that are having frozen shoulder. So can you want to just talk a little bit about what that is, why maybe it's common with women? Because we talked a little bit about that when I was in with you. And then what PT can do as far as manipulation goes in order to help with recovery, post-surgery, or even prevention.
Yeah, so a lot of times it is with menopausal women or like perimenopausal women, it is more common, and it's like a hormonal thing. And doesn't necessarily have to be like this predisposing issue. It can all of a sudden come out of nowhere. More oftentimes what I have seen clinically, like in your case, is that I had an injury and I had shoulder pain in your instance. Can I violate HIPAA?
Yes.
Okay, it was
maybe.
To an extent. She had a labral tear.
Yes.
So like that was the issue we were working on. But because of that and age and hormones and all this kind of stuff, like the adhesive capsulitis came secondary.
Right.
There's so much inflammation, and that's kind of how your shoulder responded. So adhesive capsulitis or frozen shoulder in a nutshell is basically your shoulder joint is a very mobile joint. It's the most mobile joint in your body, but it has this thick joint capsule around it that is like kind of like leather. And it has this little extra little bit under, basically like in the armpit of your shoulder joint, that helps you to like move in all these ranges. And so with adhesive capsulitis, that basically shrinks up and gets super stiff, and that's why your shoulder joint gets stiff. So in the freezing process, we call it the freezing process because it starts with pain and then you start having decreased range of motion, and that's the freezing process. And then once you're frozen, it's not necessarily super painful, it's just really restricted. So in that freezing process, research has shown that there's not a ton we can do. Like, you can't really stretch it because it's going to get pissed off and it's going to get worse, basically. But what PT can do is keep your soft tissues as healthy as possible, keep your rotator cuff as happy as possible, so that the idea is like maybe we can shorten this freezing process or just not let it get super drastic. Like maybe it only gets half frozen, or you know what I mean? Sure. But for you, because you were having labral surgery, and they found the adhesive capsulitis, they did a manipulation. So basically, like, they tore that capsule open.
They cranked that arm.
They cranked that shoulder. So after manipulation, it's a little bit different. It hurts. It's really restricted, but we have the green light to stretch it. So we basically broke open that tissue, and now we want to get as full of range of motion as possible as soon as possible so it doesn't shrink back up. So your instance was a little bit different because of the sequence of events for your shoulder.
Sure.
But yeah, so it kind of just depends on the frozen shoulder situation.
Mm-hmm. And so any injury that you're dealing with is going to require a different protocol. So again, with mine, initially I went into surgery needing the brace for 6 weeks, and they came out of surgery going, well, we had to tear your shoulder up, so no brace, get it stretched like tomorrow. And that was not fun.
Yeah.
We had a few swear words said on those days in the office. Oh, my goodness.
All of the swear words.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Thankful that that's over with. But how important it was for me to be able to go in, again, to a place where I felt comfortable and to be able to cuss, but to be able to go through that very uncomfortable stretching recovery time. And I have pretty much 95% range of motion now because I was able to be consistent with my treatments and the tissue work and the stretches and the exercises.
Yeah. So that's, again, it's nice for you to have found a place like Peak that if you were to go and to an in-network and they'd be like, oh, she had a labral pair with, did you have a bicep thingy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they moved the bicep because the shoulder had dislocated.
Yeah. With a bicep tenodesis, that's like, okay, no bicep loading, in a sling, no movement for 2 weeks. Like that shoulder would have frozen up again. So it's also like we have the liberty and the responsibility, therefore, to like look at, okay, you had a labral repair, bicep tenodesis, like she shouldn't be moving, but it's way riskier for her shoulder to freeze back up. So we have some wiggle room with these like post-op protocols, and the amount of post-op shoulders I've seen, like I feel very comfortable. I understand tissue mechanics enough to know that like if I stretch you XYZ, like the bicep's going to be fine. And I'm not like putting enough load on it. So we were able to like maneuver around those shoulder precautions to still get you your range of motion, however painful it was, without like disrupting the actual surgical repair.
Yeah. And really, I mean, I was able to lose very little muscle
from
awesome. Before, but even from injury, just to be able to keep working in whatever range of motion I could and, to get through surgery and recover well. So it's important for people to know that there are options as far as recovery and prevention other than what they may be accustomed to.
Yes, 100%. And I would also say as a plug, because you're a prime example of this, like you are shoulder pressing, bench pressing, deadlifting hundreds of pounds, right? Like if you're going into a clinic with TheraBands for their resistance, right? Like that's never gonna get you to where you need to be able to go back and lift how much you lift, right? Like there's great for maybe a super acute thing. It's going to get your rotator cuff back on track. But if you can't get underweight, if that clinic, no matter what clinic it is, if that clinic does not have the equipment to support your lifestyle, basically, and your activities, like you need to find someplace else. Like if we don't have a pull-up bar and you need to be able to show me a pull-up, like they better have one. If you need to show me a 80% deadlift and that 80% deadlift is 250, like, well, we better have 250 pounds and a barbell, you know? So people like you who are jacked and super strong, like
I like this interview.
That clinic needs to support that and be able to understand that and be able to facilitate that return to those activities.
And I'm glad you said that because my first 3 visits to my orthopedic and my sports med doctors was, you're 50 years old. We don't do anything for those injuries. That is what it is. I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah. And that was with sports med. That was my follow-up with sports med. That was my first orthopedic visit saying there's nothing we can do. You're too old. And I was like, that's really not funny. Like,
let's just tie your arm to your body and just not use it.
Right. And I wasn't willing to take their word for it and say, sorry, folks, that's all we can do. So therefore, exploring other options like Peak to make sure I'm keeping my muscle strength while I'm recovering until they finally are convinced to do surgery, and advocating for yourself is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is making Peak sound like a recluse, but like it's not that we're going rogue and like ignoring surgeons and doctors' orders, but we also just understand the mechanics of it and like how your activities are putting stress on your shoulder, your body. And that's maybe not necessarily a ton different than like picking up a heavy case of water from the grocery store, whatever. Like it's basically the same thing, stress on your shoulder, let's say. So are you telling me that you can't go to the grocery store and like pick up a case of water and put it in the cart? Like, no, like you could do that like day 2 post-op. Like some of the restrictions just don't make sense. And the reason they don't make sense is because these restrictions and precautions post-op or pre-op or no, we don't do this is because they're for honestly like relatively sedentary people, which is unfortunate.
Right.
It just reminds me of someone who I was just seeing like post a lumbar discectomy, and a surgeon's like, you can never lift again. You can never deadlift. You can't do any weightlifting. And I'm like, and he's 50 years old and in good shape and played pickleball and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, you're setting yourself up for a lifetime of back issues if you can't strengthen your back, right? Like, okay, maybe you could lift 300 pounds before surgery and now you'll never lift that much. So are you telling me like you can't help move your kid into college because you can't lift this 50-pound box because you're now too weak because your surgeon said that you can't ever lift again?
Right.
Like, it's sad and people are scared to do it until it's like, I feel like I do like graded exposure therapy for a lot of my clients who hear this because that's scary. And I feel for them, and I'm getting a little heated because it like makes me sad and like a little bit angry that you are now taking the super active 50-year-old guy and pigeonholing him into like not being able to do that.
Which is the worst thing for someone's health.
Which is the worst thing for someone's health, physical health, mental health. Like, that guy is going to have so many issues if you were to just been like, okay, I can't do any of this.
Anything.
It's not allowed.
Yeah. It frustrates me.
Yeah.
Which is, again, why I wanted to have this conversation, because there are many people listening who, again, may just want to improve performance. But there are a lot of people who have injuries or that hurt, that are, getting older and have been wearing their bodies down for decades, that need to find alternative therapies to make sure they can continue to do the things that they love.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to touch base a little bit, since we talked about the tissue therapies, a little bit about exercises that you prescribe, how you give them what to do, and the importance of buying in, like we talked about, of making sure that we're doing the exercises that you provide to people, because that's a huge piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, it is a huge piece of the puzzle. And the number one thing, and I was so guilty of it at the beginning of my career, is more is not more. So this page of like 15 back exercises and stretches that these people are coming into my clinic and showing me this is what I'm doing. And I'm like, whoa, like that's too much, because even if it is helping, like what's helping? Like you have no idea, So my philosophy that I try really hard to stick with, at least like the first few weeks, is that we're leaving here with like 2, maybe 3 things to do, because then I know it's going to get done. If I give you 10 things, it's more likely going to be an all or nothing, and it's most likely going to be a nothing.
Right.
So the importance of making sure that these 2 or 3 things are actually going to make a difference then is my job. So that's where I use a lot of this like test, retest in the clinic, is where, okay, like again, for you, let's take your shoulder. So we'll like kind of test out some range of motion. Okay, here, try this exercise. Let's do a couple sets of it. Okay, let's retest your shoulder. Is it better? Does it feel better? Yes. Okay, great. You're going to do this exercise. No? Okay, well, whoops. Let's pivot and let's try a different exercise, or let me do a few more tests. Like, why didn't that work? Let's troubleshoot this. So that, again, like ideally, like when you come in compared to when you leave, you're better in some aspect, because then we know, well, what I give you for home is also going to work. So a lot of it is just like, making sure it's the right exercise for you. Your shoulder range of motion restriction is probably different than this 23-year-old guy's shoulder restriction range of motion, right? So I should be giving you guys very different exercises, because one shoulder set exercise does not fit all,
Right.
The other thing that I've gotten a lot better at is like honing in on the dosage of exercises. A lot of times, like the 3 sets of 10 isn't necessarily like the right dosage. Sometimes it is, and sometimes I do give 3 sets of 10, but the intensity, what you should be feeling, where you should be feeling it, all those things are super important. Because if you're doing exercises and I want you to target your hamstrings, but you're feeling it in your quads, like, whoops, that's not going to do what we want it to do. So making sure that people are feeling it where we want to feel it, feeling it how we want to feel it. It's sometimes, depending on the injury, it's touching your pain, so we know it's targeting the right area, but it's not pissing it off so that we leave you feeling worse. So there's all these little intricacies that should be tested before you send someone home with the exercises.
And I'm glad you talked a bit about the dosage and being able to know what area you're targeting, because even when people are lifting weights just for for exercise rather than PT, you can see, or even from my own personal experience, that you're not exactly hitting the muscle that you're supposed to be hitting because of the form you are doing or the speed you're doing it or, not extending enough or whatever. There's so many facets to each exercise that are hitting somewhere differently on the body.
Yes.
That if you're not paying attention or not doing it correctly, like you mentioned, you could be hitting the wrong spot. And it's not an easy thing to get used to. You can do it right in your office and then go home and do it wrong every time.
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
So, and that's why, actually, I do have a lot of clients like that who are just like, okay, they come back and they're just like, I just want to make sure I'm doing this right. And a lot of times they are doing it right, but a lot of times they are doing it, not that they're doing it wrong, but it's just like, even like slight position changes or like slightly different way to think about it, like can change a whole exercise, which is crazy. I still think it's crazy. Like a lot of times in clinic, I'll give a different cue and it works. I'm like, I did not think that was going to work. That's so cool.
Right.
So a lot of it is test some stuff out. Like I just try stuff and like throw some stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And like, yep, this is going to work for you. Let's do this.
Well, and you talk about cues because I have a new coach and we have a new workout plan and he put cue words in for which each exercise I've been doing. And some of them I've been doing for 15 years. But like you mentioned, that like centimeter change and where my elbow is or how I'm angling something targeted it completely differently. Mm-hmm. So it's not that you're necessarily don't think you're doing it wrong, but it's just that easy to not do it right.
Yes, 100%. And especially once you bring pain on board or tissue injury, like I tell this people all the time, like your muscles around whatever painful area it is, they like kind of shut down as a protective mechanism. It's like your body's way of protecting it. So when people have a chronic knee issue and then I point out that like, wow, that quad, your thigh is a lot smaller on that side because, well, you've gone through 3 years of your life with knee pain and your quad is kind of pieced out on you because it's a protective mechanism. So if we just start but you've been squatting, so what's doing the work? Well, probably your other leg, probably your glutes, probably your hamstrings, right? But so now, okay, we're doing 10 straight leg raises, the world's easiest exercise, and your quad is gassed. So it's just like bringing attention to detail when that needs to be the case, basically.
Right. I feel like so often on this podcast, we learn that just when you think you have it figured out, you don't. Like you're working out, you get in the gym, and then you get hurt, and you got to try to figure exercise out, and then you got to figure out how to get this muscle to work, and then you have to navigate nutrition, and it can be very overwhelming. So it's important that people again advocate for themselves and find a professional who's going to really help guide them into performing at their best or feeling their best.
Yes, 100%. And I love Dr. Google like the rest of us. Honestly, sometimes I use Dr. Google, but again, we can go down a bad downward spiral of that if those exercises are not either A, matching your irritability, or B, like not even your issue.
Right.
So we can be hammering 10 exercises when they're definitely either A, not helping, or B, they could be making you worse just because they don't match kind of where you're at in that painful cycle.
Right. Yeah.
So it's always nice to like have someone with more knowledge than you, right? Able to like get their hands on you, assess you. Okay, like here's where you're at. Here's some exercises to start with.
Yeah, and this is where your imbalance is, and then trying to figure out how to kick those other muscles in because it can be hard to fire those up.
Yeah, 100%.
Especially like you said when you're dealing with an injury.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have any suggestions for people who are dealing with either more higher performance or injuries, what would you suggest?
As far as like where to go.
Well, we know they're going to go to Peak, and we're going to share that information.
Hello. No.
But if you're talking about like what type of symptoms, we'll go that way, would people be feeling that would make them want to come and see you?
Oh, yeah.
Let's try that.
Okay, so definitely high active people, like they're used to their aches and pains. And honestly, if you have a good base, half the time they go away, right? Like, ooh, I like pulled a lat a little bit doing pull-ups like 2 weeks and it's like back to normal. Like those kind of things are normal. We expect to kind of work through them. So what I say is if it's lingering for more than a couple weeks, if it's getting worse within a couple weeks, if it is altering your mechanics. So if it's, especially like we see a lot of runners, right? If I have knee pain or Achilles pain and I can tell I'm running funky because of it, like that's something that you are going to want to go get help with sooner rather than later, because then you're stressing other parts of your body that don't need to be stressed like that. It could cause other issues. So those are kind of like the main things that we kind of tell people. Again, 2 weeks, it should be getting better. Definitely shouldn't be getting worse. And we definitely shouldn't be altering our mechanics because of the pain.
And if someone comes in to see you, obviously it varies by client, but what is the normal time frame of when they come see you and when they can expect to see, some type of improvement? Is it like a 6 weeks or months, or how does that look?
Yeah, so a lot of it depends on acuity. Right. So if someone has knee pain for 2 weeks, and if they can be seen within 2 weeks, well, that knee pain is probably going to resolve completely in a month or two. If it's been 3 years and all of a sudden it's gotten worse in the last couple months, well, that's a pretty chronic issue. So that rehab, at least 100%, is going to be probably up to a year. But that being said, like you're getting some results within, I would say, the first couple sessions. So 2 weeks, 4 weeks, something in that realm.
Yeah. And again, that tissue work is so important in keeping that range of motion, clear. And it just has helped me so much. And I need to get back in and see you again very soon.
Speaking of.
So if people want to come find you at Peak, what's the best way to reach you?
You can call us, Google us, Peak Endurance Physical Therapy. And then we are located off of East Washington on Butler, right by the Capitol.
And you have Instagram as well?
We have an Instagram as well.
You recently shared a plank.
A Chinese plank.
Real quick, we've got 2 minutes. What is that?
Oh my gosh. Everyone should be doing a Chinese plank in their life. It's a great way to load your back in neutral without moving. So especially like my people who are like, I can't deadlift, I throw out my back every time. Well, let's get some strength in a very safe, very neutral way, and then build that capacity before we, pull 500 pounds off the ground. I'm just kidding. I won't make everyone pull 500 pounds off the ground.
Well, most of us can't. But I love that you do share that stuff on social media, because there's a lot of content out there and not all of it is the right form. Not all of them are PTs. So it's really good to have that access for little exercise you can try before a workout, after a workout, on your off day, just to try to reset some of those muscles you don't normally use.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. And we'll put links to both your Instagram and to your website in the show notes as well.
Great. I was going to say, and we're going to do a MyFitTribe discount.
Oh, we are. What is the discount code?
MyFitTribe.
Yay!
Or just if you call to schedule or online, you'll always reach Morgan, and you just tell her, like, heard you guys on the podcast and I want to come in for evaluation. And then you'll get our $67 discount for an initial evaluation.
That is awesome. Yes. So for all of our listeners, make sure you make that appointment. We'll put that in the show notes and in our marketing as well, just so people know that that's available, because having that consultation and, again, that option for services that's going to excel your performance and improve your recovery is so important.
It's huge.
Yeah. And again, thank you not only for this conversation, but also for the year of treatment that you provided for me.
It was so fun.
I want to wrap up the podcast by asking you the question that I ask all of my guests. It's a 2-part question. First part is, if you, Erienne, today can have a conversation with you of the past. We didn't touch, much on your past, but maybe the high school athlete or when you're starting college, starting PT school. What advice would you give yourself?
Girlfriend, just step out of your bubble a little bit more.
Yeah.
Talk to more people, be a little bit more open, and just connect with people. Because now that's like my favorite part of my job. It drains me as an introvert, but best part of my job.
I love that.
Yeah.
So now if you can have a conversation with your future self, maybe with your grandkids someday. Oh my God. Never know. They're just little. We can't even say that. But if you can have a conversation with your future self, what would you ask your future self, and what do you think she would say back to you?
At what age are you retired? Where are your second homes? No, I'm just kidding. I think I would ask her if this is where I'm supposed to be at this point in my life, both like family life, job, location, all that. And I think she would definitely say yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no doubt, because you're doing great things and with your beautiful family.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me for this conversation.
Thank you, Erica. This was fun. Thanks for listening to my Fit Tribe podcast.
Tune in weekly for our latest episode for more health and wellness insights and inspiration. For more information, visit myfittribe.org. Please note that the opinions and comments presented here are those of the guests and do not necessarily constitute medical advice or the opinions of My Fit Tribe. Copyright 2025, all rights reserved. This podcast is a production of My Fit Tribe, LLC. The My Fit Tribe podcast is recorded and produced by Jake Johnson at Paradigm Productions in Madison, Wisconsin. Don't forget to download, subscribe, and follow the My Fit Tribe podcast so you don't miss an episode. Thank you for your support.